Whispers of darkness. There are whispers. Stories passed through generations, warnings disguised as folklore. Words spoken in hushed tones, as if uttering them too loudly might awaken something that should remain asleep. Something watching. Something waiting. Throughout history, mankind has feared the unseen, the cold breath of an empty room, the shadow that shifts when no one is near, the feeling primal, unshakable, that something is standing just beyond the veil of sight, waiting to be noticed. And in the face of this fear, one thing has remained. One object, simple yet persistent, woven into the fabric of countless cultures, beliefs, and ancient rituals. Garlic, a kitchen ingredient, a mere spice. And yet for thousands of years, it has been hung above doorways, placed in pockets, laid at grave sites. The Egyptians entombed it with their dead. The Romans carried it into battle. In medieval times, it was used in exorcisms, not as a mere symbol, but as a weapon. Why? Why would something so ordinary be treated as a shield? Why does its legend persist across civilizations that should have never known each other? Was it merely superstition? Or was it a remnant of something far older, something deliberately buried beneath time and disbelief? The Bible speaks of a war unseen. A battle not of flesh and blood, but against powers, principalities, rulers of darkness. If such a war exists, could it be that mankind was once given weapons to fight it? Tools to ward off an enemy that does not move in daylight? If so, then garlic is more than a spice. It is a warning, a trace of knowledge that was never meant to be forgotten. And if it is a warning, then the real question is not whether it has power, but what exactly have we been protecting ourselves from? A secret, hidden in Scripture. Nothing in the Bible is meaningless. Every word, every detail, every passing reference holds a purpose, especially when it appears in a moment of deep spiritual significance. And yet, in the midst of Israel's cries for deliverance, hidden among their complaints about hunger and longing for Egypt, a strange mention stands out. We remember the fish we ate freely in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. Numbers 11:5, a list of food seemingly unimportant. But why does garlic appear here? The Israelites were not just remembering flavors, they were remembering something they had lost. Something that, for reasons unknown, was no longer given to them. When God sent manna from heaven, He provided everything they needed. But garlic was missing, deliberately absent. Was this mere coincidence? Or was there a deeper reason why garlic, once abundant in Egypt, was left behind in the wilderness? To understand the significance, we must look at the world they left behind. The Egyptians revered garlic. They didn't just consume it, they worshipped it. It was placed in tombs, buried with the dead, offered in temples. Priests used it in purification rituals, and warriors ate it before battle. Even the builders of the pyramids were fed garlic to strengthen them, not just physically, but spiritually. But what was garlic protecting them from? Egypt was a land of power, a place where men called themselves gods, where dark forces were channeled through spells, idols, and forbidden knowledge. The Bible makes it clear. Egypt was not just a kingdom, but a center of spiritual corruption, a place of false gods, of enchantments, of forces that defied the will of the Almighty. Then the magicians said to Pharaoh, "This is the finger of God." Exodus 8:19. The magicians of Egypt were not mere illusionists. They had power. They could turn staffs into serpents, summon plagues, manipulate the natural order, but their power had limits. Could it be that garlic, used so obsessively by the Egyptians, had a role in their spiritual practices that we no longer understand? And if that's true, why was God leading His people away from it? When Israel left Egypt, they were not just leaving behind slavery. They were leaving behind a system of belief, a way of life steeped in spiritual deception. God was cutting them off from everything that tied them to that past. And garlic, whatever its significance, was left behind. Was it because it had become a tool of pagan rituals? Was it because its power, whatever it was, had been corrupted? Or was it something else entirely? Could it be that garlic was never meant for Israel in the first place? That it belonged to Egypt, to the world of forbidden knowledge, a relic of something older, something no longer meant for the people of God? If so, then what exactly was its purpose? And more importantly, what were the Egyptians trying to protect themselves from? A weapon of the ancients. If garlic was more than just food, if it was tied to something deeper, something spiritual, then what exactly was its purpose? And why did the ancients use it with such reverence and fear? The Egyptians were not the only ones who believed in its power. Across civilizations spanning continents and centuries, garlic has been used in ways that defy simple explanation. From the temples of Mesopotamia to the fortresses of Rome, from the exorcism rites of medieval Europe to the unspoken traditions of remote villages, garlic has been wielded as a weapon against the unseen. But a weapon against what? The Bible speaks of beings that should not be, spirits that do not rest, creatures that do not belong. It warns of a war that is not fought with swords but with spiritual armor. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6:12. There are entities that move in shadows, forces that seek to corrupt, to possess, to devour. And for reasons long forgotten, garlic has been seen as a barrier, a shield, a form of divine protection. The Romans carried garlic into battle, believing it granted them not only strength, but protection from the spirits of the dead. The Greeks hung garlic at the entrances of their homes, not to ward off men, but to keep something else out. The Chinese burned garlic in their temples, believing it drove away dark forces that could not be seen. Could this belief have been rooted in something real? Even in the Christian world, garlic took on a strange and persistent role. In medieval times, it became part of exorcism rites, used by priests who sought to expel dark entities from the possessed. Was it merely symbolic? Or was there something intrinsic to garlic, something woven into its very nature that made it effective against the powers of darkness? If so, where did this knowledge come from? Could it be that long before history was recorded, long before the flood washed the world clean, mankind had already encountered something unnatural? A force that required a weapon unlike any other? And if this knowledge was once known, once used, then why have we forgotten? The answer may lie in what happened next, in a war not recorded by history, but by Scripture itself. A battle fought not by kings and warriors, but by the servants of God. A battle that still rages. Because if garlic was once a weapon, then perhaps the real question is not whether it has power, but why someone wanted us to stop using it. The war that never ended. If garlic was once a weapon, if it truly held power against forces beyond human sight, then what were the ancients fighting? And more importantly, is that war still happening? The Bible speaks of conflicts that stretch beyond the physical realm. Battles fought not with steel and arrows, but with authority, faith, and divine protection. It describes an ongoing struggle, one that began long before mankind walked the earth. And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, but they did not prevail. Revelation 12:7-8, a war between light and darkness. between the forces of God and the fallen ones who sought to corrupt his creation, a battle that did not end with their defeat, but instead spilled into the world of men. These entities, these rulers of darkness, are not just myth. The Bible repeatedly warns of their influence, their schemes, their relentless presence among us. Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. 1 Peter 5:8. If this war is real, then humanity has never been defenseless. We were given armor, weapons of the Spirit, prayer, faith, the name of God. But what if some protections were more physical? What if garlic was one of them? Not as a superstition, not as a myth, but as a remnant of divine wisdom, encoded into nature itself. Ancient texts speak of beings that do not die, spirits that wander, seeking bodies to inhabit, corrupting the living. The Nephilim, the unclean spirits, the entities that Christ himself cast out. The world has always called them by different names: demons, unclean spirits, restless dead. But one thing remains the same. Something had to be done to keep them out. That is why civilizations across history, unconnected by land or language, all used garlic as a barrier against them. Not for nutrition, not for taste, but as a weapon. Could it be that garlic was designed, placed into creation by God himself, as a means of protection, a shield in a war we no longer acknowledge? And if that's true, then why did we stop using it? Who made us forget? There was a time when garlic was feared by the darkness, when it was a part of spiritual battles, when it was recognized as more than just a spice. But then something changed. The knowledge was lost, the practice dismissed as folklore, the belief ridiculed, distorted, turned into fairy tales. But the war did not end. And if we have forgotten how to fight it, if we have abandoned the weapons we were given, then the real question is not whether garlic has power. The real question is, what have we let in? The blood connection. If garlic was once a weapon, a shield against unseen forces, then what exactly makes it so powerful? Why has it been feared, revered, and used in spiritual warfare for centuries? Perhaps the answer lies in something even older than belief, something woven into creation itself. Blood. In the Bible, blood is not just a substance, it is life itself. It is the source of power, the marker of divine covenant, the price of redemption. From the first sacrifice in Eden to the ultimate sacrifice of Christ, blood is the one thing that separates life from death, holiness from corruption. For the life of the flesh is in the blood, and I have given it to you upon the altar to make atonement for your souls. Leviticus 17:11. Blood carries meaning beyond the physical. It is a spiritual battleground, and the enemy knows it. That is why in nearly every demonic practice, from ancient sorcery to modern occult rituals, blood is required. It is a currency, a gateway, a claim over the soul. But what does this have to do with garlic? For centuries, healers and herbalists have recognized garlic's unique ability to cleanse the blood. Modern science confirms this. Garlic has powerful detoxifying properties, purging impurities, strengthening immunity, even altering the chemistry of the bloodstream. But could it do more? The ancients did not see garlic as merely medicinal. They believed it protected the body itself, shielding the blood from unseen forces, a repellent not just for sickness, but for spiritual corruption. Why then has the legend persisted that garlic repels the undead? Legends of vampires, creatures that prey upon the blood of the living, have existed across cultures for thousands of years. These beings are always described as parasitic, feeding on human life force, avoiding the light, unable to cross into sacred places. Fiction? or a distorted echo of something real. Even in Scripture, certain beings seem to exist in a state between life and death, spirits that wander, entities that seek bodies to inhabit, cursed souls that hunger but are never satisfied. When the unclean spirit goes out of a man, he walks through dry places, seeking rest, and finds none. Matthew 12:43. Could garlic have been used to protect against these spirits? Was it more than a simple deterrent? Was it a barrier against something that should not walk the earth? If blood is the key to life, and the enemy seeks to corrupt it, then it would make sense that garlic was given as a way to keep it pure, a shield encoded into nature itself, designed by God as protection against those who feed on the essence of life. But if that is true, then the real question is not why garlic has power, it is why we were never supposed to know. The hidden truth. Something has been erased. A knowledge once known, once used, has been buried beneath time, disguised as folklore, dismissed as mere superstition. But the deeper we search, the clearer it becomes. Garlic was never just a spice. It was a weapon, a barrier, a protection given to mankind in a battle we no longer acknowledge. So what happened? Why did we stop using it? Throughout history, there has been a pattern, a deliberate effort to erase the reality of spiritual warfare. What was once understood as truth has been rewritten as myth. Practices once considered sacred have been discarded as meaningless tradition. The enemy no longer hides in the shadows. He convinces the world he does not exist, for the God of this world has blinded the minds of those who do not believe, so they cannot see the light of the gospel. 2 Corinthians 4:4. Knowledge was stolen. Truth was replaced. It started with simple doubt, the idea that spiritual warfare was just metaphor, that the forces of darkness described in Scripture were nothing more than symbols, that entities once feared had never existed at all. But the ancient world knew better. They understood that there were forces that could not be explained, things that moved in the dark, that whispered through the ages, that influenced the hearts of men. That is why in every ancient civilization, garlic was not just food, it was protection. But something changed. As time passed, the truth was diluted. The belief that garlic was a shield was turned into mockery, reduced to nothing more than an old wives' tale. Hollywood twisted the legend, turning it into fiction. The idea that garlic repels evil was no longer a warning, it was a joke that ensures no one takes it seriously. But why? Who benefits from making sure we forget? The Bible warns us that the enemy is a deceiver, that he does not always attack openly but works through manipulation, distortion, misdirection. And if garlic was once used against him, then perhaps it was in his best interest to make mankind believe it was useless. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness. Isaiah 5:20. How much else has been stolen from us? How many other weapons have been stripped away, hidden in plain sight, disguised as myths? Because if garlic was truly given to humanity as a shield, then what happens now that we've stopped using it? What happens when we have left ourselves exposed?